I thought I'd make a video about some more details about this, sexual molestation that I was thinking of that happened. There's no telling, because when I say this, they just shot me in my intestines. I had like flashes of it when I was very young, and my mother kept on telling me a different story. Like even when my uncle raped us, that was just like my dad getting a shotgun, and fucking he's gonna go kill his brother. I said, "Fuck this motherfucker! I'm gonna kill this motherfucker for real." My mother kept on saying, "Oh, he just died of throat cancer." And I was like, I asked my mother, whatever happened to Robert? The way that my mother expressed, she was just like, just don't worry about it anymore. It's over. Like, oh, he isn't real, the cancer isn't real. And so she is very soothing when she talks about this. She doesn't say like, oh, fuck him and all this. She just like, because she doesn't want our memories to be scarred with the rapes, to try to enjoy life, I guess. But I had these flashes of like, this guy raping me, and Frankie, and it didn't make any sense to me, and I didn't have anybody to talk to about it, and but I wanted to talk about the experiences that I recently made this video. I know they keep making me pass gas about I want to say, I think this could have happened. It was either right before or right after my uncle raped us, because when I was in kindergarten, because I remember after first grade we went to Mexico. I think that's when we went to Mexico, or it was like toward the end of the year. We took like 2 weeks off or something like that. I don't remember what it was, and took on a road trip, and that's when the whole situation happened then. But this event that happened before that, by the time we took that trip to Mexico, that rape had already happened, and then me and Frankie really got it when we got there. So did I as well. And but I'm 100% on this. The doctor that I said that I used to go and get these little rubber toys, these little rubber toys. When I went inside, when I didn't lie to my mother. I know, what does a 3 or 4-year-old kid know about lying? My mother was just kind of encouraging me, like the way that she was just kind of trying to nourish me and say, okay, ¿quieres ir a la doctor? You want to go to the doctor? Come on, are you okay? You want to go to the doctor? We'll go to the doctor. Okay, we can. And so she saw my father, Raymond Paloma, very much as a caretaker. That's what she wanted. And I remember doing this in public. And I remember walking in 100% on this. I want to say it could have been a dentist. Nobody's ever going to believe me. If my mother faked her injuries, she's going to, and has an incredible memory, which she's used to always have. She's going to tell you this. She's going to validate this, but there's no fucking way. This is what bothers me. This is how Sarah Cooper gets what she wants again. And this is how her team, there's nothing that I can do about this anymore. But when we went to the clinic, the guy was a doctor, because I remember 100% he was wearing a trench coat. Those white trench coats that they wear, the doctor's coats? He was wearing that. Dentists don't wear those. So he was a doctor. And he was a Mexican guy. Kind of baldish, like he was about early 50s. And I remember walking in, and I remember my mother like asked me, "You want to go to the doctor?" Yeah, and I just said, "Oh, ¿te sientes mal?" Yeah, I just want to go to the doctor, and I just said that because I wanted to go have some toys to play with. And we we go waiting, and this is why my mother didn't want to show up. This is a brutal of embarrassment. I'm 100% about this, that I started to finger my rectum, because the sexual predator that had raped me was so vilely mentally contaminating and aggressive. Like, this person was so mentally trying to twist my mind, like, so innocently, very much like to do to this very moment with some of the people that were doing some nasty things on the bus, and the psychology shit, whatever they want to call it, psychology. But it was very, very, I just felt my intestines, and it was very vile, very very horrible, very monstrous, because you don't know any better. You're 4 years old. What the fuck, And this was so drilling. Like, I was a fucking adult, mentally. Like, it wasn't just a sexual preference. It was to mentally train you to put you there. And I didn't understand at this time. And I remember walking, and I was just with my mother. And I went there with my dad at least once. I went there with my dad and mom one time. So this guy met my dad before. So he knew that, who's this? Because I was always favored as the cute little kid in the family. I was an adorable looking child, very adorable. And my dad and mom would like to show me off and have me tag along, So it was like they were getting kind of some free shit out of me or some shit. But I went there with my mom, and I 100%, I remember I started fingering my rectum in front of my mother and father as I was standing there, because I went into this room to, like, oh, okay, when I put you in this room, this is what you do. And I don't know, I remember just walking, like, very slow steps, like, kind of holding myself, kind of like who wants to maybe tell me what to do or what I'm supposed to do. And I was like, just didn't understand. I'm not older than 4 years old. And I remember 100%, the doctor looks directly at my mother, and he looks directly at my mother, and he goes, like, looked at her like what the fuck is going on? His kid had his hand in his pants behind him, like he's freaked, and they knew. And the doctor was like this, and he immediately just put his head down, like he was just thinking, like, somebody must have fucked this kid, or maybe he didn't know Ray Romo did, but somebody But that's 100%. But when I don't know if we went back. I don't know if we went back again. I want to say I remember being in the lobby, and then my mother, like, spanking me with a belt or hitting my hand or something. I think spank, and she got, because it was like there was people in the lobby, and I didn't understand. And I stopped, and I remember the lady at the front desk yelled at my mother. I know that nobody's going to want to believe me, but the lady was like this, like, thank you, and did some shit like that. Now, I don't know if this person was a transgender. Maybe it was a real woman. It wasn't a black lady. Wasn't a Mexican lady. And I remember this lady, and like my mother kind of got startled, and that's why because we went to this clinic a total of about probably 5 or 6 times. I don't know why. We went there 5 or 6 times, and I remember going there at least, maybe not 5 or 6, I'd say about 4 to 5 for sure. Anywhere from 3 to 5 for sure. And my mother got, like, they didn't feel compassion. The lady was just like, and like raised her voice at my mother, and my mother, and because when I told my mother, hey mom, vamos a ir para atrás allá con el doctor, are we going to go back to the doctor again? And she looked at me and she goes, no, ya no vamos a ir para allá, no. And there was a startlement because the doctor told this kid, I was fingering my ass in the fucking lobby in front of people, because I didn't know him. Here he is. There wasn't a whole lot of people. I don't know. It was probably like 7 or 8 people. At least 7 or 8 people in a pretty big room. And I was staying at the front desk. So I think it's important for me to talk about, because that's something my mother will be able to remember. I really don't know really what to say about the circumstances, other than there's all kinds of stories. There's 1,000 kids that get raped, and like, you understand that people are different, and you got transgenders, and they got balls in the dick, and they want to be a girl, but when you physically, somebody fucking touches you sexually for that very reason, it's worse, in my opinion, because they're violating you, they're violating all your rights, like, by force. And, I think that, the fact that did happen, was, very, pretty bad. It was not something that, not a great memory my mother would have liked to remember, but I remember the lady raising her voice and like yelling at my mother, it was because I don't want to get involved. This kid just got raped. Like, we don't know if your husband just raped this kid and you're bringing him over here. Get away. Like, I swear to God, this lady was. This lady was nice. I don't know if it was the first lady, because I couldn't really see, because it was. I was real short and I couldn't look over the fucking table. Kind of barely see her face. I could just see her head, so she'd kind of get to the computer or paperwork, whatever. But as far as it goes with my mother, I remember when I stood and I looked at her, and this is why it bothers me, because I don't give enough description to how I know I'm seeing things, because I know I'm seeing it bullet sharp. I'm seeing, paper thin sharpness of the accuracy of what's going on. And I'm standing there and I asked my mother, and I knew this behavior when she knew there was a threat. Like how she acted. Like when we were, like, be careful with them, they're gonna hurt you. Or be careful, we can't go over there, they could, like, because my mother's not educated. And I remember my mother just, like, she was doing something in the kitchen, or cooking, or cleaning, or something, and she looked over at me and she goes, "Okay, no, ya no want to right now." And looks like she's kind of visually looking and thinking of what she experienced. Never went back there again. I don't know what it was, but this lady chewed out my mother because they knew I was fingering my ass. I know it sounds fucking gross, but it is, and it's disturbing. And we walked out in total shame together. This lady, I know there's no way that you could prove this, but my mother would be able to remember if her mind was good. But it's not. I know that even if she was healthy, it's very hard to remember those types of things. I know people, it bothers me because I know people don't seem to have a better memory than I do. Remembering things, it tends to be more of a curse than anything else. That's really how I see that. It's just more of a curse than anything else. Like I said, I remember my mother, like, getting them yelling, or like got aggressive, and she was like, and she's like, "Thank you," and my mother kind of got started, like, "We're here for help, like, we're Mexican and we're just people for here for family and help. Why are you yelling at me?" And so my mother barely knows how to drive to get to her destination, and it's just this willpower of. So it's something that it's very disturbing. Maybe my mom will be able to remember some of it if she was healthy and faked her accident, but It's stuff like that that I really don't like. That, you know, I have to say something about it, you know. So, I think it's important for me to talk about because that's never going to end. You know, I'm 41 years old. How many other tragedies are going to compare to somebody else's fucking digging in a fucking trash can already anyway? You know, there's no justice. There's nothing. They plotted this very well for over the years with the twins, with their kids in the house. And my mother slapped him in the back of the fucking head and face, you know, like a stupid donkey bitch. That's all they fucking had her. When I was working at the architectural firm at PBK, and these were police officers or detectives, when I was working over at some of these other places, and these motherfuckers were coming along and asking, they were the intentions to help Sarah and Ken. That's all, and Kenneth. And to sabotage me for the money and everything, because I could have told you all these great details and precise. Like, I don't, and because it has to do with the house, my dad's death, and all this situation, they don't give a fuck about I was the one doing all the yard work. Since I was, as soon as I was old enough to push a fucking lawnmower, and not even, I couldn't even finish my backyard because it was so big and difficult and thick grass. I could finish only about half of it, maybe a little less than half of it, and I'd have to take a 30-minute break. And I'd be drenching in sweat. My mother would be waiting for me to take a break. And the second I turn off the lawnmower, hand me a big glass of water. You know, those old school Irish, you know, tea, beer, drinking glass. Gave me a glass of water. He's like, "Oh, hey, good job, Hector, good job." And so she would always do that. And I'm doing all the yard work. It's brutal to do all the yard work. 110-degree temperatures. Everybody come on to my and be like, "Oh, you're so lucky, dang, you gotta cut all this grass." And I had to do all the weed edging, then I had to do all the fucking trimming of the fucking, of the branches to make sure it's all fucking cleaned up and shit. You know, it was hard fucking, and it was uphill and shit. Slightly uphill, and, you know, when you do all that yard work and to a house, a property, and they don't care the work and labor. I got nothing. They don't. They're gonna make up stories like they did, and this one makes up a story, and this one doesn't have to pay for it, and this one committed suicide. Let me point a finger another again. Let me point another finger. They did this to sabotage me, and that's something that they don't even want to have a discussion with. And that's how they completely erase the situation, because they don't want justice. And even if there is a conversation, what justice is there going to be served? They made me what you would call their modern slave, their modern heir. That's what they made me into. I know that's what they did. You do my labor, I pick up the check, and I'm smarter at talking, and I'm smarter, and I'm willing to go and take this to the grave. That's what they fucking did. There's no moral compass of let me make an excuse. No, you are fully smart and fully capacitated mentally to figure out and know exactly what the fuck you're doing. It's so vindictive and calculating, and it makes me so, you know, at that time it made me so, now that it's filled with just like, I could have told these people, drew these pictures of this information. I have no clue to believe anything my mother's living other than with Lucio. Now I'm starting to think Vettel and Sophie is related to Marco. And they don't want, that's why my mom went over there with the baby. I don't know, maybe not, but you know, my mother being raped and God damn you motherfucker. You know, it fucking sucks because it's dealing with my mother's death. It's like, here bitch, You hear Donkey take care of the twins. We'll go after Hector. Oops. Oops. Barack Obama for the niggas. You know it. You know, this simple shit. This is not like. You know, you got no debate, no conversation, nothing. You just give them your money. You just do as they say. And it's a very brutal price. It's like, you know, you go die in the military, stupid. You know, thank you, dumbass. Oh, well, let me look pretty as a fucking. Oh, let me talk smarter again. And you know, the way that I visualize this whole conversation of evidence is that it is confined and is agreeable on both ends and evidence on many different ends on equal parts. This isn't me using the evidence and moving forward for then my profitable gain for an excuse in exchange. They don't care about how vile Kenneth is. I'm going to the grocery store, they feel sorry for him. My mother doesn't know I'm being charged at the gas station and somebody's basically threatening me about they're in control of my mother and they're the security guards. It's some white boy. Anyway, you know, because there's nothing they're not going to lose in and what they did. They did this a long time ago. When I was 20 years old, when I was 16 years old, when I was 17, 18, they knew what they were doing. There was very clear, I'm going to get away with it. I'm going to keep going. And they did. And they fucking did. Yeah, and they did. Yeah. You know, when it's my house, my labor, my life, and I don't get a pay, you steal, you know, like, everybody has rape stories almost, you know, like, if this person just didn't go through, no, give it to Marco and the fucking twin, and give it to the fucking Julian's, you know, and for Kim and Sarah, okay, now change those emotions that you didn't show me, what you just showed my mother, what you're not going to show my mother with, you know, and it's just like, it's so the farther deep that I think into this, the harder and more difficult it becomes, because I am aware of my mother's lack of intelligence and understanding, and they exchange it for me saying I'm wanting control. Oh, I'm wanting control over your brain. It's because you're not smart. No, that's just the new person that she is. No, that's just who she is. And as we age, things get worse. Brain, body, you know, decapitate your brains, all that shit. And you know, you get dumber, you get older, you lose opportunities you don't get again. You know, it's important to say that when it's counted for, but you always have to be first to strike, and they did. And you know, that's all the fruits of my labor. Frankie, you know, I'm in a house watching Frankie get fucked. Look cool at the radio station and see what the celebrities are going to tell you about you because you have your equity with the blacks. Oh, but with the whites. Oh, but with the police department credit. Oh, it's because of the president. Oh, it's... And it just keeps going. But that's always my pain. That's always... Now I'm eating a shit when I'm going to pick up, you know, this goddamn fucking water and they play this... I don't want to play any part of this goddamn shit. But I have no fucking choice. You know, and it's, anyway, like I said, as far as it goes with that whole raping situation, you know, it's, you know, God knows what Frankie also went through himself, you know, but it's all lost, you know, it's talking about something 35 years ago, I'm 41. So it's, it's like 36 to 37 years, about 37 years ago. 37 years ago. I remember doing that. I want to say I remember some of the there were like these two chairs, and I was facing this way, and the clinic window was like this, just like this desk. And I looked to my right, there was these two chairs, an older couple, and they were just staring at me, and I want to say the news saw me finger my fucking, like, cause I was just ordered, it was on cue. It was like, okay, now, come on, like, and it was, cause this guy that had raped me and Frankie, and he was doing this crazy psychology shit, but and it's it's a very it's just fucked up because my mother can't remember this shit, and I was like, here, we're gonna spend this money to say we're helping you, but we're really just helping Michael Jackson and that side. And it's like I couldn't even get a good job. Like, you know, people don't think that how much trauma it tends to fucking carry along even when you're 20 years old. You know, like, even if I think my mother's in fucking Garland, what trauma that was fucking doing to me. Like, I didn't care about any goddamn fucking thing these motherfuckers like. And they got it, you know, it's not good to think about, you know, it's just not good to think about. There's just nothing that can be done about it. But at least I made a conversation about it, you know? You know, to bury my own problems, you know, and, you know, having somebody else reap the profits. You know, my mother was there. It got my mother just stupid donkey. I expressing if she has. It's hard because she doesn't understand, and I know that that's not who she is, and all the words and all the things. This isn't me. You know, nobody has to give you free anything in life. You're an immigrant. You know, nobody has to give you free shit. You know, just because you got problems. You got raped, well, they got 10 more that got raped. You want me to buy them a fucking house and car too? And, you know, but it is a brutal, very brutal way. You know, like my mother being experienced racism and shit going into stores, or, you know, you don't understand none of that shit. You know, the way that you have to behave is depriving of your own character in so many very deep, hollow ways that never gets talked about. And that's exactly why. Because you don't talk about it. You're just so used to the conditioning you don't understand. Like you've been raped, you know, or some shit. Like, you know, and here comes these, oh, let me feel good because I'm the one that bought you a goddamn house. Let me feel good because I'm Kenneth. I'm the one that took over the dead little girl. Oh, no, let me just talk about, and I know that my mother would have been so very thankful, you know, and I know that, you know, when I was younger, how she behaved, you know, how she behaved to that situation. And, you know, and, but yeah, I thought I'd talk about that. That was a long time ago. I'm surprised I really remembered that. I'm really surprised I remember that shit. You know, I was doing that shit in public, and I remember these two old couples were just staring at me, and they're like, what the fuck is this little kid doing? And they knew what I was doing, but it was just like, this is what I'm supposed to do. Or like, it was so fucked up because it was freshly after the rapes that had happened. And I want to say, I think it was when I was, I think it was that on my uncle, unless there was someone else that I don't know about. But yeah, it never happened again. Never happened again. I can recall. Oh, called in the time of my dad. You know, he spanked me, like it fucked you up. Like, you know, my dad was pissed, like, what did you do to my son? What did you do to my son? What the fuck did you just do to him?